Hello everyone, good day to all of you. I hope you're all doing well. I'm back with another ammunition test today, looking at the black and white box China Sports Norinco 7.62x39. Kind of an interesting round, pretty much purely because of the scarcity of it, at least here in the United States. Reason it's scarce is that this was actually banned from import back in the 90s. Import ban on all Chinese ammo, of course, but I think this is still pretty readily available, at least up in Canada, or at least last I checked. Going to be taking a look at the precision of it, but I am also going to be looking at a few other aspects of this ammo, for example, whether it's corrosive, whether it truly has a lead core, because I've heard some claims, and actually the site that I bought this on claims that this is steel core, despite it saying lead core here. And there were other boxes that I know, reading from gun forums over the years. The yellow box, for instance, which also claims to be non-corrosive, was actually corrosive. So we're going to be testing if this is corrosive, and hopefully it's not, because that is always a pain to clean up. You still can find these occasionally floating around on the web if you want to try picking them up for yourselves, or if you ever see them at gun shows, then maybe this will be a bit of a useful video for you. But if nothing else, I find it interesting. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the precision test first up. So here's the precision setup. So I have a target running down range. You'll see that there is already a 10-round group in the top left target. Reason for that, I'll show you it a bit out of order, but those were the first rounds I fired with this new muzzle brake setup and linear comp setup, of course, just to confirm there's no issues, and there's not. You should have already seen a few weeks ago, at least with how I'm signaling this, I should have put out a precision test with how this rifle itself does. This is the CMMG Descent Mark 47, and usually 10-round groups is shooting about a 1.7 to 1.8-ish MOA. The Silver Bear was the second best that it fired. The absolute best was with the Monoflex, but I'm out of those rounds for the time being, so that's what we're testing with. It's only a 0.1 difference in MOA anyway. And then the rounds I'm testing today, of course, are these China Sports Norinco rounds, which I've heard some people say they shoot well. My own bias is that they won't, but I'm not going to deliberately pull any shots or anything like that. But we'll just see. And here is the 10 rounds I have loaded. So got a very brown lacquered case. Note there is no sealant on the bullet or on the primer, just a lacquered steel. I have not fired any of these yet, so I have the gas block, because it's an adjustable gas block. It's pretty opened up, so it cycles most everything. So these should cycle unless they're crazy underpowered. And one more thing I did just remember before I do start this group, you'll note that the Silver Bear shot really low. The point of impact did change a bit with this new muzzle device setup, so I have adjusted the clicks, so I'm zeroed for that Silver Bear now, and this should shoot a lot closer to the actual bullseye. So I'm going to do one more group, exact same setup, just this one will be fired at the very bottom target. I'm doing a different box. One thing I do want to point out is I actually numbered all of the rounds in here, which I screwed up on because I kind of started this process almost half a year ago now. But I actually did this correctly now. So the rounds that I have loaded in this magazine, I loaded in reverse order. So of course what that means is round 1 will be fired first, then round 2, 3, 4, 5. And I actually took a lot of measurements on these cases, so that way we'll be able to see if the differences in how these were seated, because they were really, there was a lot of variability in them. We'll see if that also has any part to play in if there's any flyers or ones that kind of act erratically with the pressure or with the velocities. Yep. And also, the other thing I'm changing with this group is I did take the linear comp off, just because it eliminates another variable. In case any of you are wondering if maybe that's contributing, then we'll find out. I didn't note this earlier. It's not like it really matters too much, but shot a lot of different ammo from a bunch of different countries, and I've never smelled one that smells as bad as this. This actually smells like burning plastic. 10 rounds of Silver Bear. These are the first rounds after putting on the new muzzle device. So Reardon RPB, if I'm remembering correctly, is the name of it, and then I have an Icarus linear comp on top of that. I'm going to go over the precision results here. If you're interested in a particular aspect of these results, then I would encourage you to just pause the video. I'm going to try to keep this brief to not waste too much time. And this is in a bit of the opposite of what you'd expect from logical format, just because of the box I grabbed first. So the first group is actually all the way down here. And do note this, I mentioned it in the footage as well, but I didn't load these in order. So that's why I have this little line here just to differentiate it. So these CSTOs, the measurements, in other words, of the actual cartridges themselves do not correlate with, for example, this is not the velocity for this round, and that's not how it impacted downrange, right? So just focus on the averages in the case of this group. If we move up, however, to group 2, I did actually load those correctly in order, so you can go all the way across on each of these and reference. So interestingly, both of these groups, first off, there was a point of impact shift just from the different muzzle device setup I had, which isn't really an issue. If I cared enough, I would just zero it for that exact setup, but I'm usually using a suppressor. Interestingly, both of the groups had, you could say, a flyer, but I think it's better to actually include it. The first group in particular on round 4, which I'll go ahead and go back down to so you can see it here. This one shot remarkably poorly, and I was still including it because I saw no reason to count it as a flyer. The Mantis X score was fine. I felt like I had good sight picture, so everything on my side was good. The muzzle velocity was right in there with everything else, so there was other stuff that can cause a flyer, for example, inconsistencies with how they loaded the bullet, or maybe there was something wrong with the bullet itself. There was possibly an imperfection in that, and I wouldn't be surprised because this was designed as ultra dirt cheap ammo back in the day when it was imported. But since there was that flyer, I was just wanting to isolate variables potentially. So hence that second group, and you can see there was yet again still a sort of flyer. It went way to the left though this time rather than way to the right. And admittedly, it didn't go as far, or at least it looks like it didn't go as far. It actually was slightly off target, which somewhat complicates things because I said that this was a 4.61 MOA group. It might be slightly off. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if it was actually slightly closer to a 4.7, but 0.1 MOA difference, not really that, doesn't really matter that much, especially when it's already a 4.6 MOA group. It's terrible either way. So pretty odd that both of these groups had a flyer. But like I said, I included it. I think it is a good idea to include it because I have a decent amount of groups with this rifle now. It's a fairly new rifle, so there's no issues with the rifling, and usually it shoots, as far as 10 round groups, it's a very accurate rifle actually, especially for 7.62x39. Let's move on to some of the other aspects like I was saying. So let's start with the biggest elephant in the room, the corrosiveness. So I tested this by doing the nail test. I think I did about 26 hours and pulled it off, and you can see totally fine. If these primers were corrosive, what you would have seen instead is you would see some incipient rust on the very tips of those nails, but the fact that there is none means that they're actually all good. Now, I can't say for sure whether every single box of Norinco would be that way, even the ones that say non-corrosive, right, which is kind of unfortunate, but they've always been pretty inconsistent about that from what I've read, but at least the ones I got are good. Now, while I'm speaking on the primers, I did want to also point out that I noticed that the primers were flattening quite a bit, which is usually indicative of a potentially getting into higher pressures, but interestingly, I didn't really see that on the velocities. These are pretty normal velocities for 7.62x39 out of a 16-inch barrel, so it could just be something with the powder they used. I'm not terribly concerned about it. Last, I did want to talk about the bullet, which on the site I bought this on claims that these are actually light armor piercing. These are supposed to be a steel core, contrary to the box saying lead core. So I did pull a bullet, and it's lead core. So if you get some of this black and white China Sports box, then yeah, it is actually lead core. Overall, for my conclusion on this round, it is absolutely awful. I think that the old gun forums with people claiming that these are actually good have absolutely no idea what they're talking about, as usual. But I just like collecting ammo. That was the main reason I bought this. I was just like getting all sorts of rare rounds. So I'm just going to keep a box. That's why I haven't shot all these. I just have all these included on the table just so you can see all the measurements to get an idea for how inconsistent they are there. And so far, everything that I did shoot was 100% reliable. Granted, this is a very small sample size. In comparison to something like Tula, at least so far, these are igniting and firing reliably every time I pull the trigger. They just go absolutely everywhere. Thanks everyone for watching. Hope to see you in the next one.